Hello, guys. Welcome to Sports Spectrum. My name is Jason Romano. Today's show is presented by Convoy of Hope. A movement of kindness is taking place right now, and you need to check it out at convoynation.com. Here's the big idea. Convoy Nation is a gathering of friends and fans of Convoy of Hope. It's led by athletes and celebrities and innovators and entrepreneurs who are bent on fighting hunger, poverty, and suffering in partnership with Convoy of Hope. And you can join as well with our friends and Convoy of Hope in delivering things like hot meals and groceries and haircuts and dental screenings, family portraits, socks, shoes, clothing, the basic necessities. You can be a part of a movement that is going on right now with Convoy of Hope. You could check it out at convoynation.com. I'm telling you, convoynation.com is the website, and get involved with Convoy of Hope. We love the work that they're doing. Convoynation.com.
This is the Sports Spectrum Podcast, where faith and sports intersect. Now let's bring in our host, former ESPN producer, Jason Romano.
Welcome to Sports Spectrum. I am Jason Romano. So glad you're tuned in to our show today. Make sure you go check out our website, sportspectrum.com, for all of our content, podcasts, devotionals, articles, and stories on the intersection of sports and faith. It's all available at sportspectrum.com for free. And when you're on the website, click that newsletter icon at the top. Drop your email address in there, and you'll be signed up for our weekly newsletter. Just one email a week, keeping you updated on all that we have going on here at Sports Spectrum. We promise not to flood your email inbox, but it's a great way to subscribe to Sports Spectrum Weekly, our newsletter, and never miss what's going on here at Sports Spectrum. The podcast, the articles, the devotionals. We'll update you each week. It'll come right to your inbox every Wednesday when you sign up at sportspectrum.com. Today on the show, Nicole Mendes joins us. She is a two-time national champion with the University of Oklahoma, the Sooners. Man, it was fun watching that Women's College World Series just a few weeks ago, and Oklahoma persevered through it all, had their backs against the wall twice, and came through and won a national title. Nicole was a fifth-year senior this year, kind of a redshirt senior year, and able to play because she had a knee injury in the fall of 2019 that allowed her to participate, to grow, as she will share here, and to be a part of a national championship team. She's currently a member of the Mexican Olympic softball team that's going to be competing in a few weeks in late July at the Olympics in Tokyo. So Nicole goes from being a two-time national champion softball player and winning the Natty with Oklahoma to trying to win a gold medal just a month later at the Olympics. But her story is so much more. Her walk with Jesus is priority number one in her life, and she's going to share her very powerful story, an emotional story, right here on Sports Spectrum. Nicole Mendes, welcome to Sports Spectrum. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. So glad that you joined us. And thanks to, I'm going to say this right in the beginning, thanks to our friend, Sarah Roberts, who connected us. And Sarah has been such a big proponent of Sports Spectrum, but she's also got a great story of her own. And she's also impacting a lot of different people at different places, including Oklahoma and including Nicole Mendes. So it's I'm glad to have you here. It's great to have you. You won your final game as a college softball player. Only one team gets to say that, and only a bunch of players get to say they won their final game, and you got to do that, winning another national title. How does it feel to be a two-time national champion?
Definitely feel like I'm part of an elite club now.
Yeah.
Definitely in some great company, but it still seems surreal. Sometimes I can't even believe that this past season, this past year even happened. So it's just a surreal feeling.
Yeah, we're going to dive into sort of the craziness of even this year happening for you in a minute. I want to talk about a few of the games and kind of your mindset, because that first game, the very first game of the College World Series tournament, and you're playing James Madison, and I'm here in my office, pop the TV on, and I'm watching, and I'm like, oh my gosh, James Madison's winning this game. And I knew what that meant because it's double elimination. It means you can't lose again before you get into the final tournament. You're at you have to win every game. I'm wondering for you going through that experience, because it happened again in the finals against Florida State. You lost your first game and you couldn't lose anymore. You had to win the next two. It's kind of a weird place to be, but it felt like that was what made Oklahoma this year so special. Was you had an amazing year, but you had to face some adversity in order to kind of overcome what you needed to overcome.
Yeah. So at the very beginning of the year, our coach was talking about how talented this team was. And we had a really great fall. And we just really gelled together, and we had really great chemistry and connection as a team just overall. And so our coach was talking about her 2000 team and how that was the first team that won it underneath her, and just how that was the toughest team that she's ever coached, and how they were just so resilient. And she'd be freaking out, and they're like, "Coach, relax. Like, we're going to win this game. Like, we got you." And then they would somehow, some way, they would come back and win this game. And she was just kind of talking about them. And she was like, "I challenge you guys to be, I've never had a team as tough as them since." And so in January, we all came back and we watched the movie Gladiator. And that was the theme for the team in 2000. And we just kind of really liked some of the messages in there, and kind of took it to heart, and we ran with it. So it definitely had to have a gladiator mentality when you lose the first game of the World Series and you're literally fighting for survival to keep your season going.
What's your mindset when you lose the first game? I mean, it felt like you knew the urgency was there, like you can't lose anymore. But at the same time, it was almost like, okay, we'll be all right. Like, this is going to be something we got to rally upon. And that's just me watching from television and social media. What was it like with your teammates and you being one of the veteran leaders, right? Like, you're a fifth-year senior, so they're looking to you for some advice here. Hey, we've been through this. How should we respond here? What was that like when you were thinking about, after that first game against James Madison?
Yeah, I mean, we all knew something had to change or else our season would be over really quick. There's a scene whenever, and I'll reference back to the movie Gladiator again, but there's a scene where he gets to, they are performing, I don't even know what you're gladiating, in front of the emperor for the first time. And he's talking to them and he says, "If we stay together, we'll win, we'll survive. But whenever you go out on your own, that's whenever we become vulnerable." And you saw in the scene as it developed, the ones that were on their own, they perished pretty quickly, but the group that ended up staying together, they were the ones who eventually overcame and won. And that was something that we talked about that night after we lost. We just kind of gathered together and we were like, okay, this is it. This is what our path is. It is what it is. But set the road before us. And if we stay together, there's nothing that we can't overcome. We don't have to win 8 games in a row. We have to win 1 game. And then after that, we have to win 1 more game. And it's just 1 game at a time kind of thing. So the big message was staying together and fighting, because this is it. We don't want our season to end. So you better fight. Otherwise, you're going to be done. And that's not the way any of us wanted to end the season. So,
yeah, it's cliche too, that, 1 game at a time, but it's real. It's a very real thing when you're an athlete and you're a person competing. If you start looking ahead to 6, 7 games down the road, when are the finals starting? Like, you're in trouble. Like, you have to literally be in that moment, in that game. And you guys did that. You guys were amazing to watch, kind of battling and grinding and just having fun too. I mean, what an awesome moment every time you guys would have an RBI single or a double, or somebody would hit a home run and everybody is just going crazy. I thought it was awesome. And it was so fun to watch. My daughter and I watched it together, and we were having a blast watching it. When you think back, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years down the road, and you think back to this last couple of weeks in this run that you guys had for another title, what's the one moment that you think will stand out, that you'd be like, okay, maybe it was right after you won it, but there's got to be a moment that stands out, a specific moment in this whole run that you can point to?
That's a tough question, but I think of, so whenever you lose the first game, you have the day off the next day, and it literally has nothing to do with softball. But I just remember the team getting together. Scissortail Park in Oklahoma City is right next door to our hotel. So coach calls us down and she's like, we're going to go for a walk. And so we just walk around the hotel and we find some rocks. So Sarah Roberts is our chaplain during OKC, and she talked to us, and there had been a lot of battle themes going on throughout the year. And she was talking to us that previous morning about battling and just like rocks and like the significance of like having something permanent there. And so coach is talking to us and she's like, all right, so everybody pick up a rock. And so we all picked up a rock and we're like, I have to see where this is going. We're like over a bridge, over water. He was like, okay, this is a moment where you decide to go all in, and any worry, any doubt, anything that is putting you aside or anything between you and 100%, like this is the moment where you put it into this rock and you throw it. And so it was, again, pretty cliche, throw the rock into the water and your worries fade away kind of thing. But it was so special because in that moment you could really sense the shift of everybody. And not that we weren't all in before, but you could just tell that everybody had nothing in between them. They weren't going to let their own doubts or their own circumstances kind of overcome them or overwhelm them. And that moment's going to be really special to me thinking back, because that was the moment that changed everything. Sure, the games are great, but I knew we could do it because of that moment. So it's a really special moment.
Yeah, that's a great story and a great moment. I also know it leads to kind of putting up the four fingers that you guys were doing after each win. And in those moments where you had to have I just think about using your platform, right? Unintentionally or intentionally using your platform, especially as believers, to let people know where your priorities lie. And the four fingers, I didn't realize what that was at first. I'm like, what are the four fingers? And then Sarah Roberts tweets what the four fingers means. And I said, that is awesome. So for those listening who don't know what the four fingers mean when you hold them up, share with us what the meaning behind that is.
Yeah. So Sarah Roberts, I have to say, is just the coolest person. I love her so much.
She's great.
So we decided, she did like chapel Zooms with us and our team, whoever wanted to come to chapels throughout the whole year. And since we kind of hit on the gladiator theme early on, that was the theme of our chapels, is battles that were in the Bible. And so it was around postseason time that she brought up the idea of just the idea of like coming together, banding together, creating this moment. So my freshman year, which is kind of cool because it's like a full circle moment. My freshman year, the theme that she gave us was the power of three. And that was in head nod to David's three mighty warriors. And in the Bible, it kind of talks about how one of the warriors, he battled when the rest of the army fled, and he like defeated a bunch of men and like pushed them back. And him and King David fought back to back, and they fought until they couldn't even lift their swords anymore, and they were victorious. And one pursued an enemy and cut them all down. And it was just like these feats of men that did something so incredible. And one thing that Sarah talked about was it was more than them. It wasn't for them. It was for something bigger than them. And then one of the pastors that came and talked to us during regionals, he is the guy that my coach goes to church to. He's a pastor of Summit Church. Todd, he's really awesome. And he was watching our game. And I'm not a big football fan, right, but apparently like in high school football, like the big thing to do is like around the third quarter, you like raise up your fingers, like fourth quarter, it's the fourth quarter.
Yes, for sure.
Saying like you're going to win or something. I don't know.
It's just rallying the team to say now is the time to do it. Let's go. Yeah.
So Todd was watching our game and he was like, I wasn't even there in person, but I just found myself holding up the four. And he came and spoke to us the next evening, and he was talking about what that means, like as a sports team, but also as a Christian, what does that mean? And so it's something like, who are you playing for? And what does this moment mean? How are you going to use this platform kind of thing? And so a lot of us just kind of really identified who we were playing for, what we were playing for. Like personally, I was playing for God. I was playing for my teammates. I was playing for my family. So there's a lot of things that you can put behind it, but that's kind of where the first version of the four started. And then Sarah Roberts next weekend, we were so excited to tell her, and we're like, Sarah, guess what happened? And we're telling her, we're talking to her about it. And she's like, that is just crazy. So she had just finished reading the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And in that story, those three men were bound up, and it was a battle, not so much physical, but more so spiritual. And whenever they were tossed into the furnace, like the guards tossing them in were like immediately killed.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you didn't see three, which is what was our theme freshman year, but you saw four, which was so cool whenever she explained it, and how they were unbound, they were unharmed, and they were walking around inside this furnace that was supposed to kill them. And whenever the king called them out, he immediately didn't just acknowledge them, but he acknowledged God. And that was something that she passed on to us and was saying, hey, like in this moment, it's not just, you don't have your teammates back. You don't just have coaches back, your family's back. You're in this with God, and he's that fourth person walking around with you. And whenever you give him the glory, whether or not God gives you the win or whether or not he doesn't, he's the one who makes it okay. And he's the one, whenever people ask you about things, you point to him, and immediately they have to at least acknowledge the fact that you're talking about God and you're putting this much faith in God, and it starts a conversation. So that was kind of where the four started. And then it just kind of took its own life into super regionals. And then throughout the World Series, a lot more people were starting to ask more questions about it. It was fun seeing the guesses, and I was like, not quite. But yeah, it was really fun being able to have that moment of where we could just look at each other and we knew what this meant. It meant it wasn't just us, it was God's with us as well. So it was really cool.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that, because it's such a great story. What was this like for you this year as a spiritual leader, as a senior, a fifth year senior? And, you know, it's not a Christian school per se, but it's clear that faith is a driving force. And we've had Coach Gasso on, so we know that her faith is important to her too, but it's still not a Christian school per se, right? So you have to navigate that in the right way. Maybe not everybody on the team is in the same place or even believes the same thing, but you're still a fifth year senior as one of the leaders, and people are looking to you for guidance, for advice, for wisdom. How did you feel like you grew this year as a leader when you think back to 2020, 2021?
Yeah. Whenever I think back to 2020, so I tore my ACL in the fall of 2019 going into 2020. So there was a lot of questions and uncertainty and confusion, frustration, a lot of struggle. And as I continued throughout that year, I kind of grew a lot in my walk with God that spring of 2020 after our season got canceled. And that summer and fall leading up to this current year, it was a struggle. I'm not even going to sit here and lie. Like, it was a struggle. I can't even begin to describe some of the stuff that came up, but it was hard, and it really put my faith to the test. But I think as this year came about, I was just so grateful to be here with these girls and with these teammates, and like be able to be on the field again at OU and represent this university. It was so special, and I didn't want to lose any moment, and I didn't want to be at this position where I would regret something 10 years from now, 3 months from now, anything. And I wanted to just make sure that I went all out, not just physically, but also spiritually. So I know one of my really good friends, Riley Boone, actually got baptized. And it was like one of the best moments. I was like so happy. I think half of our team came, 90% of our team came, and we were just like crying. There wasn't a dry eye. We did it at Coach Gasso's pool. And It was just an amazing moment. And I just think whether or not it's a Christian university, it's the environment that you're in that really makes a difference. Not everybody is required to go to chapel. There's girls in our team that don't come, and that's fine. But sure. I just wanted to make sure that as I'm going about my last year, and whether or not they ask about it, teammates, other student athletes, just people watching, I just wanted to make sure that I was living my best life for an example for Christ. And so I just wanted to make sure that I didn't regret anything. I didn't want to regret, oh, I wish I had done this differently. I wish I had spoken to them about this. So that was just kind of my intention as I went about this last year. And to see one of my teammates get baptized was just incredible. It was like an amazing feeling, just knowing that this girl that I love is going to be with me forever in heaven. So that was just a really great way to cap it off. But I just think as you navigate the waters and areas that aren't always supposed to be Christian friendly, just being true to yourself, because I think that if you're a Christ follower, whenever you follow out the guides that God has set before you, if you continue to stay on the path that God has set before you, it'll show through. Maybe not so much in words, but with your actions. And people will say, there's something different. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to ask them about it. And that gives you an opening to explain a little bit more, but people know. And I just wanted to make sure I lived that out.
Hey guys, let's take a quick break from our conversation here on Sports Spectrum to tell you a little bit more about our friends, our partners, Convoy of Hope. They are a faith-based international humanitarian relief organization, and they have one simple goal: to bring help and hope to those who are impoverished, who are hungry, and who are hurting. You can check them out at convoynation.com. Convoy of Hope is all about engaging, caring, nourishing, growing, responding, and partnering. They do such amazing work. And I'm talking about providing things like free groceries, health and dental screenings, haircuts, family portraits, hot meals, job placement assistance, and much more. They hold these events all around the country that people can get involved with and actually serve and help those in need. But there's also ways for you and I to get involved. Maybe there's not an event right in our backyard, but we can get involved with Convoy of Hope. We can start our own event. We can donate. We can pray for the work that they are doing. They are a great organization, and I highly recommend. Sports Spectrum loves being involved with these guys, and we highly recommend that you would get involved as well. You can check them out at convoynation.com. Check them out at convoynation.com. You can donate, you can pray, and you can be a part of the great work that they are doing, supporting Convoy of Hope's innovative international programs. Check out convoynation.com. So let's talk about living out that faith. Nicole Mendes, who joins us here today on Sports Spectrum, the two-time national champion Oklahoma Sooners softball player. Tell us about when that faith became Nicole Mendes' faith, and when you ask Christ into your life, your testimony of faith, and when God became real to you.
Yeah. So my older sister is deaf. And so growing up, I went to a deaf church. It's a pretty unique experience. Instead of speaking, the head pastor would sign, and then the interpreter was actually somebody who just spoke out loud. That was the interpreter.
It's like almost the reverse of many churches.
Yeah, it was a pretty unique experience, but that was kind of the basis foundation of my faith. And then I'm sure, as so many other athletes can relate to, as I got older, I got more involved with sports, and weekends became busy with tournaments, and we would be playing Sunday mornings for a championship. So going to church regularly became really, really difficult. My mom, I was homeschooled as well, I should add that. So my mom was teaching me, and faith was also a really big reason why my parents decided to keep me homeschooled. And so she made sure that I was reading the Bible and doing that kind of stuff. But going to church was really difficult. And being around other people, just having that community of growth was kind of hard sometimes, being on your own. And as I got a little bit older, one of my cousins, I was probably in like 8th grade, 9th grade, one of my cousins invited me to her church. And so I went, not as many tournaments on the weekends, and everyone's in high school ball, so I had more time on my hands. And I started going, and I loved it. I loved the pastor, I loved the worship, but the biggest thing that I loved was just the fact that I could feel myself growing and learning in the Word with other believers who were ahead of me, behind me, beside me. It was just an amazing feeling of we're all learning together, and we're all growing, and we're all striving for this relationship with God. Even though we're on different levels, we're all striving towards the same thing. And as I got older, so I had been a believer for a while. But I hadn't been a part of a church. I hadn't been a part of that community. I'd never been baptized. And so as I got older, I was like, this is something that like, I really want to get back into. And I started getting back into it more. And for a couple of weeks, my worship Bible study leaders were talking about baptism, and I was wanting to do it. And I was really, really like just self-conscious. I've been a believer for how long now? I'm this old now. Like everyone's going to think that I was a fake kind of thing. And like, I wrestled with that a lot. And eventually I was just like, like I love God so much. Like, why else would I not want to do it? Like, why else? I'm going to get emotional.
It's okay.
Yeah, it was just an amazing moment. And it was a moment for me. Oh my God, I'm really getting emotional.
It's okay.
It was just a moment for me where I had to clearly distinguish, is this something that I believe, or is this something that I'm going to take action on, and I'm going to take a stance on, and not just say I believe it, but actually follow through with my actions. Yeah. And do I care more about like what others think, or do I want to like go and follow? Oh my gosh. And so I got baptized.
That's awesome.
And that for me was like the biggest moment. I would say like where my switch kind of flipped up. And just been growing ever since. I'm so far from where I need to be, but
we
growing
all are.
that relationship has been has just grown exponentially since that moment. And I've seen him move in so many ways since that moment. So it's been really cool.
First of all, and don't take this the wrong way, I love that you're emotional, because it means that it's really important to you, and it means that it was a powerful moment. And I think that's great, because I have a daughter who's 17, right? And she played softball, and I baptized her when she was 10 or 11. But I hope that as she gets ready to go to college and starts to begin her life, like she has those moments where she is emotional because she's just moved because of how powerful God is and how amazing he is and how much he can really transform our lives. I think about what this must have been like for you coming into Oklahoma as a freshman. I want you to go back to that time, the Nicole Mendes, who was probably bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and just trying to figure life out. Not that you have it figured all out now, but in 4 or 5 years, you can certainly grow a lot as a person. Take me to that freshman year and kind of how much you've grown in your walk with the Lord since you got to Oklahoma.
Yeah, I don't know if bright-eyed is the right word. Probably more like wide-eyed.
Wide-eyed, right?
Felt so overwhelmed my freshman year. I loved every moment of it, but everything was so new from school, growing up, being homeschooled, just classroom sizes, homework assignments, just such a different thing, change of pace. Softball was so different, and all of a sudden I was not good at the one thing that I was always good at, and I had to catch up, and I had to catch up quick. To just getting to know people and making relationships with others. It was such a new experience. So I was just a little out of my element, and I was like, what is going on? And I definitely had to lean on God during that time, because I was like, I don't know what to do, what to say, where to be, all those kinds of things. So he definitely was my rock, I would say, during my freshman year, of just being faithful, just kind of an area where I could run to him for peace. And I just think I remember talking to my mom about this actually last year, and saying like, man, I feel like every year at the end of a year, I'll talk to her like in the summertime, and I'll be like, I will learn so much this year.
That's good.
Like, I don't know how I'm going to top it. The next year I'll be like, holy cow, I learned even more. Yeah. So I'd say freshman year was a lot about peace. And that's kind of where he was like my biggest comfort. And then sophomore year, I had a great freshman year. I found a lot of great friends. Academically, I was doing fantastic. Softball wise, I won a national championship.
Right. You came right in and just did it as a freshman. Oh, everything's great. We're just going to win a title every year.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. And as I got into sophomore year, I kind of put a lot of pressure on myself, not to perform, but to recreate. And coach talked to me a lot about not putting pressure on yourself to do the same thing that you did. It's a new year. It's a new team. You're a different person you were a year ago. So that moment was just really, really hard. I also, in the fall, I had to struggle through depression a little bit. And that was like a hard moment where I was like, nothing is going great. Like, I don't know how to get out of this moment and just enjoy myself again. And that's the moment where I would say he was more of a rock than a peace giver, where I could just, like, I did not have a ton of peace sophomore year, but I was just hanging on to that rock and I was just clinging on to him because I was like, I'm about to be blown away if I don't. So he was a huge rock my sophomore year. And then moving on to my junior year, the fall was, I don't know why, but the fall has always been a hard time for me. I think it's because in Oklahoma it gets cold and like something about the weather. I'm from Houston. I'm used to it being warm, but
I was going to say, Nicole,
describe
cold because I live in the Northeast. So I'm just
oh my gosh. I don't know how people do it. I really don't. Going into college, 40 degrees was like really, really cold for me. Okay. I was like, I can't do it. And then I got to Oklahoma and I was like, I really can't. But yeah, going into junior year, I was staying late after practice one time and I was pitching to a teammate and she hit a ground ball and it just missed my glove, took a weird hop, hit me in my cheekbone right here and shattered my cheekbone, shattered right here. I had to have surgery. I looked like the little beast from the Goonies. Hey, you guys, that's what I looked like. The side of my face was like swollen up like a balloon. Yeah, it was pretty brutal. And so I had to sit out. And whenever I came back in the spring, there was like that learning curve of, okay, like I like even in classes, just like looking down, it put a ton of pressure on my face. So classes was like a struggle trying to catch up in softball, that kind of stuff. And that was whenever I learned the value of community and other followers, and like God really kind of directed me towards them during that season of my life. Also, Janie Reed, she's a member of the USA softball team.
We know Janie. She's great.
She's awesome. Yep. She was a GA at OU my sophomore year, and she just kind of talked to me a lot sophomore year about preparing for battle, interestingly enough, and just putting on the armor of God. And so as I was working through the injury and I was coming back for the spring of my junior year, I was reminded of that a lot. And a lot of the girls that I met with, girls like Grace Lyons, Kinsey Kelso, those kinds of girls, Fale, we all really got together and we were a really, really solid group who just kind of met and dove into the word and shared honestly what we were going through and just being accountable and loving with one another. And it was just an amazing season of just growth with sisters, not only on the softball field, but like in Christ. So it was an amazing, amazing year. So I love that. So I'd say just fellowship was a big theme my junior year. Sorry, cool. I'm dragging this out.
It's okay.
And then my 2 senior years, I think the regret of like the idea of like leaving no regrets and just going all out was just kind of more in my heart than anything, because I tore my ACL and I was like, I don't know when I'm going to be playing softball again, if I'll get to play at OU again, what the next season looks like.
Right.
If we come back, I find out I do get another year. I'm rehabbing all summer. I do get another year. I don't know what the mass protocols are going to look like. I don't know if we'll even get to play because of COVID outbreaks. I don't even know what the championship's going to look like. I don't even know if we're going to have stands, if I can even see my family during the season. There are so many things that were up in the air. And I was just like, with everything so uncertain, whatever I can control, I just really want to make sure that I don't leave anything to question, because I'm questioning too much already, kind of thought. And so I just really, really wanted to drive home, for me personally, the idea of leaving no regrets and like being true. So I think that was the biggest thing my last year. And I mean, I can honestly say, and I don't think a lot of people can say this, so I'm truly grateful, but I have no regrets.
That's good.
I enjoyed this last season to the max on the field with the girls and fellowship, and I have no regrets. I loved every bit of this year.
That's awesome. By the way, this is a podcast. You can drag out as much as you need to drag
Sorry.
out, Nicole. It's fine. This is a podcast. If it was on television, it might be a little different. We'd have to cut you out.
Yeah.
Come on, it's a podcast. We can keep going. You mentioned Janie Reed, who is a member of the USA Olympic softball team.
Yes.
And there's a good chance, well, I would imagine, that you're going to be facing her in a couple weeks because you are a member of Mexico's Olympic softball team. So this new chapter begins and starts in Tokyo. You're actually preparing and practicing and getting ready right now for that time. Tell me about how that came about with you playing for Mexico.
Yeah. So one of my teammates, my sophomore year, she played for Mexico for a couple years, and the coach reached out to her and he was like, do you have any girls on your team that would be interested? He asked about me and she said, hey, like, is this something that you would want to do? And I was like, I don't know, like, I'll give it a try. And so I traveled with them for one tournament in the summer, and it was kind of like my tryout for them to see if they wanted me, kind of thing. And I just fell in love with the girls. This team is like a family, and they are so close knit, and they've been playing together for 5-8 years. And I was kind of the newbie on the team, and they just totally embraced me and made me feel like I was one of them. It was such a great moment. I enjoyed myself. It was so loose and so fun. And from that moment on, I was like, I want to be a part of Team Mexico. And so I was invited to join the team, and I continued to play with them. And we qualified for the Olympics in 2019 in Canada. Yeah. Which was such an amazing moment to see all these girls' hard work pay off. And I got to be able to contribute, and that paid off as well. And it was just such a sweet moment. But as we're preparing for the Olympics, and every day I look, it gets closer and closer. It seems like it's taken forever to get here. Yeah. I just look around at the girls, and I'm just so grateful that each and every one of them have been on the team, and that we've connected paths along the way.
It's got to be neat too when you finish this amazing journey with Oklahoma, right? And your girls there, and you love them, and you're building this bond. And now you kind of break for a little bit, and you turn around, and now you got these other set of amazing girls that you're bonding with. And it's like almost, I don't know what it's like. It's almost like summer camp, right? And you got your friends throughout the year, and then summer you go away for a week, and there's all your buddies that you haven't seen in a year, and you get to hang out with them for a while. Feels like that's what this is like, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. I honestly haven't seen most of them in about a year because of COVID. And so I came back and I saw them, and we all hugged, and it was a good time. It did feel like a summer camp reunion a little bit, but it's cool to see how quick this turnaround is, because going from college, it's a lot more structured. Obviously coaches are paying you to be there. Right. And so it's a little bit more structured, but as you come here, you're going off of a great year, and just having that feeling of high, like going into this moment where we're going to the Olympics to play for a gold medal is just another kind of high all on its own. And so just kind of with them so close together, kind of bringing that momentum from my last year of college with me to the team, and just contributing in whatever way I can. I'm really excited to get going. I'm really excited to see what we look like in Tokyo.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having an Olympics. First of all, I mean, it should have been last year. It's not. It's this year. I wonder if you recognize, and I like asking athletes these questions because, we talk to a lot of pro athletes and certainly amateur athletes as well. The magnitude of the amount of people that watch what you do, right? Like, you're a softball player. It's not who you are, but it's what you do. It's different. But when I was watching the Women's College World Series and I saw whatever it was, 13,000, it was sold out. And obviously playing in Oklahoma City helped to have a lot of Sooner fans there. Yes. But it was jam-packed. And the sport has grown so much just in the last 3-4 years or so. The ratings were clearly up. ESPN's loving the fact that everybody wanted to watch it. Even when there was the rain out and your game was at 3:00 Eastern time, it was like, why isn't this game in prime time, and give these girls a chance to kind of showcase their skills? So people are watching and noticing. And then the Olympics, I mean, that's the world is watching. Do you ever think about the amount of people that are watching you all play a game, a sport? Does that ever hit you guys at all, or when you hear things like that?
I saw the numbers. I saw the pictures from whenever it first opened up, the World Series in Oklahoma City, and like a side by side of like then and now, and just the sheer amount of people.
Yeah.
And I've seen the growth since my freshman year, just the number of people in attendance. Like this year, it was so loud I couldn't even hear myself think, which was so cool. But it's hard to grasp like that many people are watching.
Right.
It's like, I know it's growing, and it is like the coolest thing to be able to see something that I love. It's just a sport. It's just a game. Girls trying to hit a ball, like that kind of thing. But to see it grow to the level that other sports are on, is super cool. It just unreal to think about.
I look at it as a platform too, right? Like if that many people are watching, what a great chance for you to witness and share about Christ. And I saw that with a lot of your teammates too. When Oklahoma won the title, any post-game interviews, it wasn't a whole lot of shyness there on telling people where the strength came from for many of your teammates, which was pretty cool, and understanding that you had this platform to be able to glorify God with. As we wind down, my last question for now, because I do want to talk to you maybe after the Olympics too, and kind of hear some more about all that God is going to do for you and for your team, but mostly for you in your walk with the Lord when you get to Tokyo. But for right now, what is God teaching you today? This is a question we ask all of our guests. He teaches us something new every day. You probably could have said every day while you were getting ready for the game at hand that day that God was teaching you something new that day. But today, as we sit here and we have this conversation, what's he teaching you?
So I'm currently doing a Bible study on Jehovah Jireh, which is the God who provides. And it has been so cool to see God just kind of like flick myself in the head and just be like, hey, like, relax, I've got this. So just really being able to trust him with the future, trust him with this moment, trust him with my worries, with my joys, all those kinds of things. Because that is something I like. I like spontaneous trips, but I also, whenever I make the trips, I like to plan them out just a little bit. Sure. So letting go of that control is something that's kind of hard for me to do in every aspect. So just trusting that if God said that he's going to provide, I don't need to know all the details all the time. I don't need to know what it looks like in a timetable, but just knowing that he's going to provide in a way that's going to be good for me, but most importantly, good for him and his glory. Yeah. Sometimes I may not understand until 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road, or maybe next week. I don't know, but just trusting with that and trusting that provision. It's kind of what he's like just flooding in right now. So
that's good. Well, you told me before we started, you have no idea what you're doing once the Olympics are over. Yeah. And I was like, I love that because it's scary. Listen, when it's scary and you're
so scary.
Right. But at the same time, I think when you know you have this amazing Savior that's walking with you, this amazing Father that's walking with you arm in arm, it's almost like it's okay. We'll figure it out. I'll direct your steps. It just feels, I know you said you didn't know where you were going or what you were doing. And it's kind of interesting, your answer there, because I think it is a good reminder for all of us to know that it's okay. He's got it in his hands.
Yeah.
That's good
and
stuff.
I still have my moments where I'm like, oh crap, I have no idea what I'm doing in 3 months. Yeah. But just being able to trust in him has helped me a lot. Not only just growing in that relationship with him and like growing closer to him and getting to know him and having an active relationship, not just reading the Bible and understanding that these are things that happened, but reading the Bible and understanding who God is and understanding that he loves me and that he wants what's best and he can provide for me and all those kinds of things has helped me a lot to just kind of, okay, like I'm going to do what I need to do and I will prepare, but if what happens is going to happen and God's going to be there every step of the way kind of thing. So that's cool. Helped me kind of relax on that a lot and trust in him.
That's good. She is Nicole Mendes, a 2-time national champion with the Oklahoma Sooners and getting ready to do battle over in Tokyo with the Olympics and the Mexican Olympic national team. Nicole, this was really awesome. Thanks for agreeing to do this. I'm glad we could find the time to do it. And I wish you nothing but the best. And, hopefully we'll catch up with you after the Olympics are over and see how everything went. But thanks for being here and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And many thanks to Nicole Mendes for being here today on Sports Spectrum. I love her story. I love her heart to serve Jesus, to follow him with everything she has, and to make his name known to others, kind of fulfilling the great commandment and the great commission, right? Loving Jesus, loving others, and then making disciples. Thanks to Nicole Mendes for sharing her story right here today on Sports Spectrum. And of course, you'll be rooting for the United States at the Olympics, but keep an eye on Mexico as well, because Nicole Mendes is going to be playing for them. And maybe we can get Mexico and the U.S. to play a gold medal game. That would be kind of fun, wouldn't it? And Nicole Mendes, I'm sure, is going to have a large impact, not only on the field, but off the field with the Mexican Olympic softball team. And many thanks to Nicole for being here today on Sports Spectrum. You can give her a follow on Instagram. Make sure you tell her that you heard her story right here on Sports Spectrum, the intersection of sports and faith. Thanks to Nicole. Thanks to you as well for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast so that you never miss an episode. When you click that subscribe button, whatever app you listen to podcasts on, you'll never miss an episode. We drop 3 or 4 new episodes every week, and it's a great way to stay in tune with what we have going on here at Sports Spectrum with our podcast. And that way, you never miss an episode. And then if you rate and review the podcast, it helps get the word out. But really, the best way is to tell someone. Tell someone that you heard Nicole Mendes' story right here on Sports Spectrum, and tell them that, listen, if they love Jesus and they love sports, they should be checking out what we have going on here at Sports Spectrum as we bring Jesus back into the sports conversation. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time right here on Sports Spectrum. Have a great rest of your day, and please do stay safe.